Okay, now, so this is the playground. Just put in any password and you log in. This is the playground. We'll come back to it. I've added some like YouTube videos because most times when you say go study this on YouTube, you get overwhelmed by the amount of videos that are there, and then some might just waste your time, some might explain it in a much more difficult way, and some might not even do a good job. So I handpicked those videos that I think they were straight to the point and wouldn't really waste your time, because one of the things that I'm offering in this class is like let you know that this is not a big deal. But I know that most times when people achieve success, they now make it pompous, like, no, it's not a big deal. Really, it's just because of the fact that they also had a kind of like hesitation, a kind of fear, and then when they did it, they look back at it like in hindsight, and they were like, oh, it isn't really as difficult as I thought it was. So that was why we started with the overview of knowing entirely what's going on in an organization, so that before you even learn, you already know how you're coming in. Like, you, many of you should now have a mental picture like I've been there before. Like, this is what you guys are doing. It's not anything new. You wouldn't really look like a newbie when you come into an organization. So really, these are not too much of difficult stuffs. These are like straightforward stuffs. Don't feel too overwhelmed with it. It's just, what I think is the key is constant practice. Like, if what happens is, after you if you're very invested in learning any tech role, right? You need to give it time, and then you need your mind to be stayed on it. When your mind is stayed on it, then you will just sit, and you'll find out that you're trying to understand how maybe a load balancer works. And then you see that you're asking yourself questions. And when you ask yourself questions and you don't know the answer immediately at that spot, you need to access whatever study material you have. If you have access to like AWS account and you can spin up servers, then spin it up and test it right there. Trust me, if you do that, you will never forget, because it's experience, right? Rather than a lecture, it's now an experience. So there are many things we'll say here that will make sense right at the spot, but give it a day or two. You'll find out that you begin to ask, what did he do? Did he really do it like this? Or did Do not allow yourself think that and then leave it to slide. Immediately you find any bit of confusion with regards to like understanding the process, because when you know something, it has to be in your mind, right? Like, if we said the step was A, B, D, and E, and then you find out that a week later you're a bit confused. Was it A, B, D, E, or was it A, B, F, E? When you get that slight confusion, go back to your videos or spin up your playground, test it yourself. So you would know that's your brain telling you that that's a part I didn't catch very well. So once you go back and do it, so that's why the platform gives you that easy spin up, easy access, so that you don't feel like, I would have tested this, but then I don't have the AWS account and all. And also, my drawback then, when I didn't have the AWS account, is when I'm confused like that and I try to go on to YouTube, then trust me, I would have to write down my thoughts. If not, you go from one video to another, hoping that the person, the tutor on that video, explains exactly what you're looking for or the question that you have. And you might have to go through about 5 videos before you actually find who was talking about exactly what you were confused about. So you go on to test it, and then always practice. If you don't practice, you're not gonna go anywhere in tech. tech is not our traditional university course where we read and pass. You have to actually practice. If not, when you're in the interview ground, what you're saying is mental picture of what you're doing. They can ask you, how do you resolve a merge conflict with your Git? How do you resolve a merge conflict? You need to be able to see that in your mind. And how do you do that? You've practiced and practiced and practiced. So this playground allows us to spin up servers. Server, let me pull it up again. So stuffs like this, when you're able to log in, when you're able to rent servers like this, and you log into it, you will not see a UI. You will not see a GUI like the way your computer is, where you can see folders and click on it. We don't click in the Linux on these servers. We don't click. We only have a terminal. The only thing you're going to see is a black terminal, and the way you interact with it is writing. You write and write and write. You don't click anything when it comes to Linux terminal. So this is an Ubuntu server. Right here, when you want to rent, you can, this can be Ubuntu, this can be Red Hat. There are different distribution of Linux, so you can choose which one you want to use. As based on the distribution of the Linux servers, they do some certain things. Like the Red Hat that I know of, Red Hat is much more company friendly, while Ubuntu is much more DevOps, much more tech practice. Like if you wanted to spin up a server for your normal practice, you should spin up an Ubuntu server. If you wanted to like host your server as a company, use Red Hat. It kind of has some features that are more tailored to organizations in large scale. So this, you can just come here, you can click on create Ubuntu virtual machine, and automatically it has been created. The at the background, this application spins up the Docker image that replicates and simulates that server. So many of you will get to see YouTube videos. Please go onto YouTube and see what a real server, logging into a server and see what it looks like. Then you can confirm with it that it looks exactly as what we see here. So let me pull this up. So now that command that I copied there is for me to log into the Ubuntu server. Now I am in the Ubuntu server. Now these things I will write, these are what we call Linux commands. Okay, give me 1 minute, Onu. I will call you up. You have your hand raised up. So this is what we call the Linux commands. This ls means list. So when I do ls, it's going to list the folders or the files that are in this Linux server, Then when you do, if you want to create a file, this is the command touch, let's say james.txt. You have to add the extension of the file. The extension of the file .txt is just a normal file. If I want to create a JSON file, I would the extension will be .json, stuffs like that. We'll go in depth when you do start a full class, but you know, this is just like showing you what the playground does. So it has created the file, and then if you want to see that the file has been created, you list the directory again, and then you see it here, that you see the file here. If you want to write into the file, there are commands to use to write into the file. If you want to create another file, there are commands. If I want to create a folder, there are commands mkdir, and then we'll call the folder maybe class. We'll call it class. It gets created. You list it. You see it here. You see this class. It got created. So there are several commands where we can run, but this is just like this is what it does. So you don't have to worry too much about renting a server from AWS and having to have those costs. So whatever the Linux commands are, you come and you practice them. So let's go back again. So if you can see my screen, I had them itemized here. So Linux command crash course, not too long. This will give you like the necessary commands that you need to know. So when you follow
Hey everyone, welcome to Linux Command Line for Beginners.
So when you follow what he's saying here and you come to your VS Code and then you're doing the same practice, like he says to enter into a file, or he says to do something to delete this james.txt is rm, which means remove. Rm james.txt, it got removed. So when I list again, you don't see it. So when you're watching a YouTube video, be practicing as you're watching. Don't even think, okay, let me watch it and finish and see if no. That's like giving you an idea of how people practice and like they don't waste much time. Is before you even know what is A, make sure you're ready to practice what is being taught, because if you just try to read and try to listen to a video, you might get overwhelmed. And it's how the mind works. When the mind is overwhelmed, it might feel discouraged. So don't let yourself even know what's going on. Once he says this, go on to your server, practice it. So that's how you do it. So this is for Debian. If you wanted to spin up a Debian server, you click here. If you wanted to spin up like the Red Hat Alpine, you click here. Those are like the same thing. You get a terminal as well. So let me see. Let me stop this one, and then I can spin up the other one and see. I don't want my resource to be
Yes,
drained.
sir. Why are you calling? Sorry, why are you calling it Red Hat? I've been looking around to see Red Hat. I'm just in Debian, Ubuntu, and Alpine or something.
All right. The Debian is same as the Red Hat. It's just like the name from the image that I put. So it's Debian. Debian is same as the Red Hat.
Okay.
Yeah, sir. So for this, come in. So you see, we got logged into another type of server. When you do ls, you still see folders that are in there. You can run the same Linux command. So it's very straightforward. So, yeah. So this place that I'm opening up, this Docker desktop, I'm going to share a YouTube video that you're going to be able to install this on your computer. If you don't have it, you would not be able to run this playground. So you need to have it, and then you just run one command, and then you have the playground on your own computer. And you don't necessarily need to access anything anywhere to be able to use it. So now we'll come to database, just in case you want to practice with a database and all. Like when we talked about maybe as a DevOps engineer, you want to automate creating tables on a database for them. Like before you even propose that to your boss, your manager, and create a Jira ticket for yourself, you can come here and test and ensure that you actually can do that functionality. So this is the Postgres database. You can actually spin up a Postgres database, can spin up a MySQL database, can spin up a Mongo database. I'll spin up a MongoDB database because it has a UI that I can show you right away to test to know what's going on. So it's creating at the background. All this we'll look into it in depth later on. Then for the DevOps guys, they use these Jenkins to create the CI/CD pipeline, and they use GitLab as well to create CI/CD pipeline. They use SonarQube for testing. For anyone who has maybe stumbled on a DevOps class syllabus, you definitely see this Jenkins, this SonarQube and all. These are load balancer. We'll spin them up just like, this is a kind cluster. This is a Kubernetes cluster. By the time you get to Docker and Kubernetes, you've come to the end of DevOps, and then you are now a professional DevOps engineer. You would also feel excited for what you've learned, and you'll be eager to want to show your skill in an organization. So the image is loading in the background. Once it's done, it will display to us that it has been created, it has been spinned up. So just give it a few minutes. So from here, yeah, it's coming up MongoDB. Yeah, it shows that it has come up. So we can access it on localhost 8081. So what you do is on your own computer, you come to localhost 8081. Yeah, it's asking us for the username and the password, and the username is admin and the password is LEAP 2025. Yeah, this is a MongoDB database UI. So now you can create a collection, you can do whatever you want to do with it. So when you see it like this, right? This is like bed to you. So you just hop onto your YouTube and look for how to navigate MongoDB database. So you just put the video side by side, and then you know what to do next. So like this MongoDB particularly, I've used it to do a practice where we talked about Kafka moving data from a source to a destination. So I connected the Kafka from this playground and connected it to this MongoDB, and then moved some data. I sent data into the MongoDB, and I saw that it got moved through Kafka connector into the Kafka cluster, and I was able to see it in the topic. So this is like, you can put it in there that you integrate MongoDB with Kafka. That's all there is. If you go to a work environment, this is how their MongoDB will still look like. So it's like same thing. So I'll spin that down. If I'm not using a resource, I just like to spin them down so that it does not really drain my resource on the computer. Okay, so like for example, let's see this Jenkins. This Jenkins would be nice to see. Okay, so creating Jenkins, which the DevOps guys, 90% of your time or 80% of your time will be spent on any tool that helps you create a CI/CD pipeline, which is like this Jenkins. So Jenkins, access it on localhost port 8444. 8444. And yeah, this is Jenkins. This is Jenkins where you create pipelines. You can call it test pipeline. In the class, we'll get to see all those, see what it looks like and everything. Freestyle project, you come, this is where you connect it to the repository that is going to be watching. Yes, you see what is called here, repository URL. This is where you connect it to the repository. In that, in light of that, let me show what a repository is. Like, you all, if you wanna get into tech, this is how you prepare yourself. You need to have this. You need to have what is called a GitHub account. This is where you upload all your projects that you've done. This is where you upload all your projects. So when I think someone asked a question on the day one class saying they will ask for portfolio and the rest. So when they ask for portfolio, really is not like for you to like show them in terms of how the UI UX designer would show their designs. Yours is to show the project, like show the project. Someone who is intelligent, like they are in the tech field and they are trying to interview you under the tech field. Whoever wants to interview you under Kafka may know a little bit about Kafka, but they are not experts in the field. So that's why they need you. But they will know at least they will know much enough to know if you're saying something correct or if you're saying something totally out of the picture. So most times in an interview, you see them nodding their head. They don't even let you finish if you actually say the keywords that they have on their system. Like if they ask, how would you move data from MongoDB database into Kafka? And you mention, I will create a custom producer. You are very wrong. You don't need a custom producer to move such data. You just need a MongoDB source connector. So even if you say I would spin up a MongoDB connector, you're still a bit wrong. They might not really care, but someone who is strict will know that it seems this person doesn't really know. If you really know what you're doing, which you've done practice, you will know that there are two type of MongoDB connectors. There's a source connector and there's a sync connector. Source connector is taking it from MongoDB into Kafka, while a sync connector is taking it from Kafka into MongoDB. Your question was, how do you move it from MongoDB into Kafka? So you say this is something which I've done in the past and it's quite straightforward, frankly. I would first of all check if we have Kafka Connect cluster running in our environment. If we don't have a Kafka Connect cluster, I will spin up a Kafka Connect cluster, download and install a MongoDB plugin, connector plugin, and then I would spin up a MongoDB source connector to connect to the MongoDB and connect to Kafka, and then begin to stream the messages into Kafka. Before you even finish your statement, right? They've cut you off saying, oh, okay. Then they give you the next question. So this is your GitHub. In the class, we'll start, I think this should be like the very next thing after learning Linux and then doing some little bit of Python and Bash. The next thing will be how to create your repository, push codes into your repository. So we said the developers in an organization, they will have their own GitHub. This is my personal GitHub. So in an organization, they will have their own. They may not use GitHub entirely, but it's like understand the concept. So, but many organizations use GitHub. So this is one repository. So if we open up this repository, you will see files in this repository. You see files. These are files that I uploaded myself. So you'll see files in this repository. This is the repository where your pipeline will connect to. Your pipeline will connect to this URL, right? So that your pipeline keep watching this repository. If anybody pushes their code into this repository, then you can trigger your pipeline to do whatever it needs to do with these codes, with these files that are in here. They are called source codes. They are source codes, and then you do anything with it. This was like a project that I did a couple months ago, blah, blah, blah. Like if you go through it, you see what it is. But then, yeah, everyone is going to have their GitHub, and then they'll start populating their GitHub. Yeah, so this is the repository URL. We'll take something like this. We are not doing the full-fledged practice, but we'll take something like this and come and paste it here. So our pipeline will know to watch that particular repository. So this means that how many repository do I have? I have 20 repository, but this pipeline is going to be watching only this. So if you this is where the DevOps job get crazy. So if you step into an organization and they have 20 repositories and they feel like they need a pipeline for each, then this is, I think in that case there's no structure where you can have one pipeline that connects to multiple repositories. The example we did was connect to one repository but deploy into multiple environments. But in the workspace, which for me, what I do is each repository deserve its own pipeline. But then deploying, they can deploy into dev, it can deploy into UAT, it can deploy into production. You don't have to separate it for the deployment environment. But for each repo most likely has its own CI/CD pipeline, or in a much more advanced case, maybe I'm not sure, but yeah, each repo, especially if it is doing a different thing, like see, this is Green Zaria application, like it contains map. I don't want to go into it. This is totally different. And then when you come into my other repository, this is email notification system. So those are two different things. It has its own set of files. So those are two different things. They do two different things. Look at the UI for this. Look at what it's doing. So you don't want to like connect. You just create another pipeline, right? It's not a big deal. You just create another pipeline that you know connects to that one. So when you're doing a KT, you let them know this pipeline is for this. Based on the naming of the pipeline, they get to know which pipeline is for which. So yeah, that's all about that. We go back. That's the Jenkins there. So we'll get to know a lot about creating a pipeline and all when we start. And then you also have the practice right there. So what else? Like Nginx. Nginx is a load balancer. Can spin up an Nginx server, and then we can see it. So for some of you that may want to do a full end-to-end, you can have ChatGPT or Cloud AI. You can have it spin up, create for you rather, a mini shopping cart or e-commerce website, just a mini e-commerce website that's not too doesn't have too much crazy stuff going on. And then you try to do the load balancing and everything. Just watch a YouTube video or just follow the class and understand how these things link together, and then you can use the stuffs that are available. So this one is localhost 8080. You see, welcome to Nginx. So yeah, it's how this thing works. You learn how to configure Nginx and everything. Crazy stuff going on, but you now have it instead of needing to always go to the AWS that might be difficult to access or costly to access. So what else? Kafka cluster. Do I want to spin up a Kafka cluster right here? I don't think it's necessary. We'll see everything in details. The Kafka cluster, it needs to download the image and all. We'll do that in the class. Hope this makes sense. I will share with you guys. Please write in the chat. Leave your email. You can't see my screen.
Yes, sir, I can see your screen again.
I'm sharing my
I
screen.
know
Right? I'm
my
sharing.
network.
Who else can't see my screen? Please let me know if you can see my screen.
That was what I was trying to tell you that time, but I think it's network.
I can see your screen, so I guess it's network. I can see it. You're
Okay.
about Confluent Kafka.
Yeah. It must be network from your end. Sorry about that. So I have a recording of this class. If it's needed, I can share. It's clear from my end, so you get to see everything. Okay, so yeah, this is there is. Please just in the chat let me know your email address and the one you wanna really learn. If it's Kafka, if it's DevOps, then I'll push this to you, and then I'll push the application to you and some YouTube videos on what you need to, how to set it up, and then you take it up from there. You can do your normal practice before the class even starts in January. So it's all fine by me. Yeah, you can learn the two if you have the time. I think it's quite nice to actually learn the two, and then you can see yourself apply side by side. You apply as a Kafka engineer, you can apply as a DevOps, Kafka admin, and DevOps engineer, whichever pulls in first for you. You can actually pick it up. All right. So maybe stop sharing my screen. Is there anything that I should touch on? Even if there is, we'll have a class and then most likely do that in the class. So it's Saturday. I really want to not keep us in the class for too long. All right, so I will be looking at the chat in here, and then I'll take note of the email addresses, and then I'll share it sometime within this week or next week.